it up, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. Ooh, I've been on the flex since flex on. Neighborhood all in your eardrums. I ain't never scared like Bone Crush. Boy, I got God, don't fear none. My line busy, take no calls. Feels like I don't have no flaws. Snakes in the grass, cut those off. Yo, squad shitty, my bros raw. No breaks, we go, 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 go. Throw shade, that's a no, 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 no. Go high, go low, low, low. Like spinning in a 644. Cash money like 504. Ball like AD24. No sleep, need more, more, more. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. You see the drippy, I'm fitted up. Hop in my car and the giddy up. Secure the bag, yeah, I get the bus. Pick it up, pick it up, pick it up. Ooh, I'm a real one, my day ones. Try to speak up, can't say none. Try to dig dirt, there ain't none. I make the money that save up. 10 to 80, my savings. Take to the top on the baseline. New car, fast lane. With the booyah, that's a flex. Not a human, I am from another planet. I'ma teleport my advantage. I'ma wake up, do damage. Join number 7.
Hello, welcome into the CCF Podcast. Hope you're all doing well. My name is Jonathan Cronenberg. You can find me at John K NFL. Next to me, rocking the shades, we have Tony Casolo. You can follow him at Lots of Boba Fett. We'll talk about what you're doing a little bit later.
What are you talking about, man? What are you talking about?
The normal gear. Underneath us, we got Rick Baum at Falcon 8 fan. Honestly, guys, let's just get into the first thing that Tony brought up that I didn't see. He just pulled that up while we were doing the intro. So, Tony, let us know what's going on.
As if rivalry week didn't need any more. We had a coach throwing a little spice right on the mixture this morning today, huh? We found out that apparently the head coach up at CSU has an issue with some of the headgear that Coach Prime is wearing during his press conferences. But, it's as we were talking about before the podcast started, Rick, you mentioned it wasn't like CU needed any more motivation, but they certainly got it now, don't they?
Well, to your point, Tony, in the words of Coach Prime, they've made it personal.
That was the message for Nebraska, and it'll certainly be the message going forward for Colorado State as well. So I can't wait. It's going to be a fun time.
Yeah, for me, this is just going to be a little bit of CU kind of just adding more salt into the wound if it turns out the way that most of us expect. So I'm very excited about this. I understand where Jay Norvell was coming from, trying to get his players pumped up, trying to make them feel like that, hey, we're a different team. This is kind of our brand of football. We'll play against CU and then we'll finally see who kind of is the king of Colorado. But at the other hand, it just kind of felt a little flat because a lot of people I noticed on Twitter were putting in those, then showing pictures of Jay Norvell and his hats and his sunglasses and kind of stuff like that in front of the media and adults, which was kind of his issue. So for me, it's one of those things that is just hilarious. And why don't we pull up your article here real quick?
Yeah, and this is something that was actually put together by one of the guys that I work with. So shout out to Matt Wadley. He does a great job for Buffalo's Wire and also for Trojans Wire, if you guys are Trojans fans. But yeah, Jay Norvell really had social media buzzing today when we looked at this, Again, I think you're right. It's kind of funny right there. That picture. Does a visor count as a hat, Rick? What do you think? Is a visor a hat or no?
Oh, this is a good question.
I consider it hat 2.0.
Hat 2.0. There we go. So I guess hat 2.0 is okay.
I think it's hat 0.5.
Hat 0.5. There
so
you go.
Much. I need the coverage.
So, I mean, just, as we scroll through this, obviously, if you guys haven't seen, this is where it came from. They were doing their pregame show with, what is his name? one of the hosts is the guy that calls games for CSU. His name is escaping me right now. Mark, there you go. And he had made the comment that, when I talk to grown-ups, I take my hat and my glasses off, and that's what my mother taught me. And obviously, you could see the reaction from Coach Prime and some of their well-off media videos to follow. That's what he considers a shot at his mom. So, as Rick said, it's going to be personal today. But, you could see everyone was tuning in to add a little spice to the game.
Well, here's an update, Tony.
Mm-hmm.
Game number 1 against TCU was personal because they had played in the national championship game the year before. Game number 2 was personal because of the rivalry and the history with Nebraska. Game number 3 is now personal because of those comments. So stay tuned for what's going to motivate this team that needs no motivation week 4.
Well, and it's funny that you mentioned that when CU left the Pac-12 for the Big 12, head coach Dan Lanning of the Oregon Ducks, next week's opponent, made the comment, well, what have they done? What are we supposed to be worried about? What have they done since they joined the Pac-12? So it looks like that's the message for the season.
I just have to say, the one thing I always hate for that thing when they say, what has CU done for the Pac-12? Look, I get that they haven't been a powerhouse in football. They have done so many good things in in track and field, many other sports. So that's one thing I just have to get off my chest. And, on top of that, the Buffs won in 2016, the South. So let's just be a little bit more. I understand it was a long period, though.
Yeah. No, I get it. But that's going to be the message for the season. Is it's personal. They'll find a reason. They'll find motivation.
Yeah. All right. Real quick, what did you each kind of learn from week 2 from your programs? I kind of had a week off with CSU, but there's some new stuff coming out. So, Rick, why don't you lead us off here?
Well, first and foremost, here's what I learned. It is dangerously hot in Houston, Texas. It is throw in some humidity, and I'm glad it was an indoor stadium. So that's what I learned from the conditions. What I learned from the opponent, Sam Houston State, was that they can play defense, and of course the Falcons can. So
real quick, number 1 defense. Tell me a little bit about this. Aren't they number 1? Tell me.
Well, we haven't played anybody, so that I'm not going to talk too much about it. But with that being said, we were the number 1 defense, as we've talked about on this program last year. So this is a good opportunity to keep it rolling. I think we found out something I already had suspected. The offense is sputtering, and sputtering would be kind to say. So that's what I learned.
So I have to ask this question. I know we kind of can have it set up for later, but it just comes up now. What would be a spark to get the Air Force offense going, in your opinion? Just your personal opinion.
I think we found a couple players we can rely on. So we got to invest in those. And then we got guys who haven't shown up this year. And it's not by their fault at all. They just haven't been given the ball. So when I do my preview, I'll mention those players. But it's time to go with what you're seeing, and then bring some guys who haven't been involved yet.
Yeah, I agree. It's one of those things. Get the guys that have been there, done that. This is a senior team. Take advantage of it. This is their time to win the Mountain West Conference. I feel it. And I think the Air Force, again, they've done it plenty of times, but Air Force really, I think, can take control, especially with Boise State having some losses. So I'll kind of move on a little bit real quick here from CSU. The big thing is that Braden Fowler Nicolosi is now the starter over Clay Millen. I found this to be very surprising and a shock. Honestly, I thought Clay Millen was going to get more time in developing, but at the end of the day, he's done this for 2 years. He's also was with with the other guys in Nevada, kind of learning from them. So, at this point, it feels like Clay Millen, maybe it is time to move on. You don't want to become so stagnant with how you're performing in the Mountain West Conference versus CU versus, a Pac-12 team that, not many people are excited about. You got to be able to start moving the ball down the field. And I think that's the best thing for CSU right now is to get Braden Fowler, Nicolosi in. But at the same time, it just felt like a few waste of development time, at least with Clay Millen.
Now, do you think that's just performance related? Because I had done obviously my betting articles that I do for Buffalo's Wire each week, and I had seen that Millen was actually listed as questionable due to an injury. So is there some injury factor to that
There
too?
is.
Okay.
There is some injury factor going on there. He did get hit in the arm when he was making a pass and kind of just went to the ground there. But he came out right after. And so maybe there is somewhat going on in terms of an injury. But at the same time, it feels like the coaching staff has said we're making this switch. It doesn't feel like that they're just doing it out of injury. It felt like because of the game, the way it went down last week, 2 weeks ago, Nicolosi could basically move the ball at double what Clay Millen was doing. And at that point, you needed some guys to take some shots. And Clay Millen wasn't taking those shots. Let's be honest. He was taking those dump downs, those really easy passes, and it just wasn't working out with the receivers for CSU.
I can't tell you, and this is your second game, that type of a short leash is dangerous.
Oh,
I mean,
yes.
it's a morale killer. It's am I the next to be benched kind of atmosphere in the locker room. And it also, and this is one of the things I think we're going to find out real quick is, yes, BFN, as I'll call him, he thrived against mostly second and third team Wazoo players. So, boy,
that's
welcome,
a fantastic
welcome to
point.
your first start.
Yeah, and this first start, I feel like, just again going based off of Tony and what we were talking about with some of the coaches' discussion, I think the Buffs just want to crush their in-state rival and make them feel like the little brothers that it's kind of been for a while. And again,
Right.
That's just something that CU loves to do. This is something that I did want to talk to Tony. Just how does the atmosphere feel like right now at, when you're at Folsom Field, just because it's changed so much, I assume, compared to those, when I was going 3-win seasons, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What is the difference in atmosphere?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of unlike anything I've seen before. So, I was able to go cover the game last week and was in the press box. But along with that, I was able to go to the Big Noon kickoff set and see that full party and everything that was going on. We were there right as the show was starting, and the crowd was electric. You could definitely tell that it stepped up a notch. You could see those glimpses even last year against TCU in that first game. The student section was packed. Like, they were loud, they were ready, and they just, the team let them down. And now it's just taken it to another level. And then you look at now what's coming this week with not only Big Noon kickoff, just basically saying we don't care about Penn State, Illinois, we're going to stay in Boulder, and having College Game Day come along with some of their other ESPN shows. First Take's going to be broadcasting live from there tomorrow morning. Pat McAfee show is going to be broadcasting live with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson tomorrow during the game.
Well, that's an interesting pairing, but yeah, I'll take it.
I believe it. I saw it on Twitter today. Yeah, The Rock's going to be joining Pat McAfee and AJ Hawk for their show. And then we have a pre-game party with Gronk and Lil Wayne on Fair and Field at 7 p.m. right before kickoff. I mean, it's the best comparison that I've seen, and I pitched this to my brother because he was a huge fan of that team during this time. But it's like the closest thing you've seen is like prime Miami and pardon the pun, but prime Miami Hurricanes, where all you saw was celebrity after celebrity rocking Hurricanes gear.
Oh, yeah.
Now all of a sudden that's Colorado. And again, I know you and I have joked about this, John, but we're almost like Paul Rudd from the Hot Ones or something like that, where he's like, look at us. Would you ever have imagined? Not me.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one.
It's crazy. Like the atmosphere is just, it's unreal. It's gone up another notch. And like I said, the best comparison I've seen is prime Miami. It's that kind of cool that Colorado is right now.
Well, let me tell you something, Tony. 1 year ago today, I was taking some calls and talking to some people about the death of the University of Colorado football program.
Right.
We had just, and you were there, we had just two in the rain, 41-10, and they were talking about the whole team hitting the transfer portal and cats and dogs living together in mass hysteria. And a year later, it's the circus, right? So here's what I know about the circus. The circus comes to town, and it's there for a while, and then it abruptly leaves. So enjoy it now, because you will probably never see this in your lifetime.
I don't think we will.
Let me ask you one question. If Coach Prime is able to do this, has a really successful year, would you add any money to his deal in order to make sure he doesn't leave? Because look, there's schools out there that he could definitely go to, make them the top team, again, in the college playoffs, it feels like. So do you think that's something CU has to consider?
It's not out of the question to start adding years or looking at an extension. That's something we've talked about, joked about in my family as well. I think one thing that is cool about Coach Prime that you look at, and this was kind of reiterated. I was listening to a radio interview this last week, and it was a guy named John Jock. He was given like kind of unparalleled access to Jackson State during Coach Prime's time there. And it's, all about his motivation, his story, everything. But the couple of things that he had kind of reiterated is that Coach Sanders is not motivated by money. He can go out and make as much money as he wants, anytime he wants, doing speaking engagements,
sign
coaching.
A bunch of helmets, sign a bunch of stuff. He can make some bank, especially now.
Yeah, and when you watch a game, I mean, he's almost gotten to Peyton Manning level where he's every other commercial. He's KFC's, California almonds or something like that, randomly.
Oh, he does that too.
I think so. So I think, and he said this, he wants to be places where he's needed, and I think to Rick's point, if you look at Colorado, the state of Colorado a year ago, we needed someone like Coach Prime. And he felt that. That's why he was drawn to it. And he was drawn to Rick George and what they were trying to do. So do I think it'll last forever? No. But the point that he's gotten CU to in just a year's time is incredible. And I'm going to hang on to it, like Rick said, for as long as I can.
So here's where it ends. Here's your sneak preview. Probably not in the next couple years, but lifetime contract. Florida State University is on the path.
Oh, that would destroy me. Just because I'm not a big FSU guy either.
Well, this will be the next Bobby Bowden if he wants to be.
Wow,
I definitely see that happen.
High praise, very high praise, and I think I hate to say it, I can't really disagree that would be a good match because it just is.
Yeah. Now he did have that weird interaction. I don't know if you guys saw it, but there was I think it's Ariel from CBS 4. She had asked Coach Prime about having a bunch of Hurricanes in to visit him when he's a Knoll, and he's like, "I'm not a Knoll. I graduated from Tallahassee State."
Yeah.
And he's like, "No, I'm not a Knoll. That's where you graduated from, right?" So that gave me that little glimmer of hope.
That's a good point. I think it's
Mhm.
also about recruiting for him. Let's
Mhm.
just be honest. These last couple weeks have to be huge for recruiting, by the way, for the Buffs. I know we're kind of pressing a little bit on time on our intro, but man, I see the invites, and those guys have to just feel something special when they're going.
Yeah, you can see that even from, guys that haven't committed yet to guys that have committed and are taking a second look, like a Boot Carter.
Yeah.
It's going to be fun. That I think it's Bryce Underwood. He's actually moved up his visit to visit
Yes, I
for the
saw that.
CSU game.
He is
So,
going to CSU. That's
mhm.
good to know.
Mhm.
So as we kind of move along here now, we kind of want to go into what each conference is doing. So let's start off, why don't you think, with the Mountain West Conference? What do you think about that, guys?
Unimpressed, really, to be honest
Well,
with
let's just make our transition real quick. So let's start off with the guys that are doing well. It's always, when I heard it the
Calming.
first time, I had it very loud and I was like, oh, I can feel it. Then I learned hit a little bit calmer on the mic, or excuse me, on the earphones, and then I'm just perfect. I really like the way that sounds. So, Rick, why don't we start with you when it comes to the Mountain West Conference? What are your thoughts? Because you go everywhere, you see this for real with your own eyes versus just some recaps I get.
Well, here's and 3 weeks. If you played in week 0, 3 weeks is hardly a litmus test for your program, but it can give you some key indicators. And I think in the Mountain West, it's almost like deja vu. So going into week 3 a year ago, Boise State was struggling. They were 0-2. I think if I remember right, they went down to New Mexico State, lost. Hank Bachmeyer never really saw the field much after that. The Smurf Turf people were going nuts. They were calling for Andy Avalos's life, not his job. And there was a little bit of panic, and conversely, Air Force was heading up the road to Laramie after being very ill that week, and they lost. And here we are a year later. There's a lot of similarities. Wyoming has a huge appearance in Austin. We saw some things from the conference that we like. We've seen a lot of things where that possible merger really starting to look good because we're not having the kind of success that I think we expect to have. And conference play for us is opening up tomorrow. So I'm excited, and I hope it goes different than last year. So last year, the teams that struggled in the beginning, they regrouped and got to be really successful, including Air Force. And I would just hope for a little bit of continuity and something that's going to make this an attractive product going forward.
Yeah, and just kind of speaking of in generality how the Mountain West Conference is doing. What are your thoughts on, again, Nevada kind of staying unable to get anything going? Really, they haven't won a game and it feels like forever. It just feels like there's a lot of average play going on right now, and again, like you said, there could be some additions with the way college football is going. But again, there just seems to be teams that should win and just don't win at times as well. And again, for someone like myself who watches Colorado State a lot, it's been rough. It was definitely rough last year. It feels rougher this year, even though this team is improved. So, when it comes to the Mountain West Conference, I think that, for football, it's still pretty wide open. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think we're gonna once again see a little bit of parity. You're gonna see a couple teams, and Boise State will be that team. That dominates in the conference to a point. I think Air Force will have its place. I don't know if they'll dominate, but I think that they'll have their role as probably first or second best team in the conference, and really, Fresno State's a wild card.
So you're buying into them? That was going to be actually one of my questions. Do you buy into them right now?
I do.
Okay, wow. I know it's been a lot. I've been hearing a lot of different things, people saying that they have a lot of potential. But to hear it from you, knowing that you do a lot of previews, all those different things, makes me feel just that much more comfortable with them being there. And again, other teams like Wyoming, 2-0, you're saying how important their games are. Really, do you feel like this is Air Force's conference to lose at this point in some manner?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I really think this is where we're going to notice, especially hearing from Tony and, his first Pac-12 update and then next year into the Big 12. We're really going to see that rift between Group of Five and Power Five, and it's going to be obvious, and hopefully it'll set us up for good things in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Go ahead.
And just kind of speaking of that, the division between the Group of Five and Power Five, we look at, something that could potentially be a future conference matchup this week when we have an Oregon State taking on a San Diego State. I know there's been some talk of having maybe Oregon State and Washington State join the Mountain West. We kind of saw what that looked like when Washington State played CSU in week 1. Based on the line, I kind of expect a similar matchup between Oregon State and San Diego State. What would you think about that kind of thing when there is those kind of divisions between teams, potentially having 2 Power 5 teams drop down to not drop down, but join the Mountain West? What would you think about that, Rick?
That would be such a benefit. If we hypothetically put a conference together and a year from now, we're going to talk about the top 4 teams being Oregon State, Washington State, of course, Boise State, and Fresno State. And then you're going to talk about continued rebuilds from your Air Forces, your UNLVs, your Colorado States. So, yeah, I think the future is bright depending what they decide to do.
I totally agree. And you'd be hitting a lot of huge markets there with that footprint. You'd have Washington, Oregon, California, Colorado.
Oh, that's a great point. Once you're able to attack the market, and then again, not to be in that predicament that the Pac-12 was, where it's like, hey, we want our games to be at this certain time. By the way, in the East Coast, everyone had to go to bed by now because it was impossible to stay up that long. They had work in the next day. They had so much going on. How can you stay up to watch a Pac-12 game? That's one thing that I really like about the Mountain Western Conference is they play when I kind of need to be able to watch. So it works perfectly, and they do a great job of kind of letting people know where the games are, when they're at. I feel like that's something that the Mountain Western Conference in total does well.
Yeah, and well, we can kind of use this as a transition point too to talk a little bit about Pac-12. But that Pac-12 after dark, that was a valuable thing to those TV contracts, which again, you start to look at that, if Mountain West could embrace something like that and even start to brand a Mountain West after dark, something like that, you could see where you could get a pretty sizable TV contract, especially with when you compare it with what those schools are probably making on a TV contract right now. If you add an Oregon State and a Washington State and can get some, hey, we're the only games that are on at this point for this Mountain West after dark, you could really make something of it.
Yeah, I 100% agree, just because, again, you can switch some of those up. So you have some in the middle of the day, and then you can have those ones on the West Coast. I really like this idea of how you've gone about bringing it up, both of you, Tony and Rick. So really good stuff from you guys there. I really appreciate it. You guys ready to have we done enough on the Mountain West Conference and the Pac, or do you want to go a little bit more deep into the Pac? Let's do that, actually.
Yeah, that'd be great.
So let's go into the Pac. We are going to
you look at how well the Pac-12 is playing right now, and you think to yourself, how could they have screwed this up? The first time in their conference history that they have 8 teams ranked in the top 25, guys, and it's a dead conference walking. It's mind-boggling the amount of mismanagement that this leadership had prior with the Larry Scotts of the world, that you could have a division playing this well and a conference playing this well, and it's essentially dead. Like, we talk about it, me and my friends and my family and other sports writer, it's awkward because, like, when you would hear Gus Johnson during week 1 against TCU, if he said it once, he said it 10 times that this is a Big 12 shootout, to the point that Joel Klatt's going, not yet. Technically, they're still in the Pac-12. I mean, it's very awkward. And I mean, you look at it, like 8 teams ranked right now. 8
And
teams.
on top of that, the teams that aren't ranked, the 4 that aren't, if I have that right, they're 1-1. So we have the Pac-12 has no one under 500 right now. That is pretty amazing. And again, you just have to, looking back, I understand we were very happy where CU is going in the future with realignment, but at the same time, man, you just feel like this was just a waste of so much potential. I understand also that, you know, when CU switched over to the Pac-12, there was some additional academic benefits as well with Stanford and UCLA, USC. But at the end of the day, we have 2 of the big teams leaving anyway at the end of this year, and that kind of caused the cascade effect. It really was unfortunate. They needed to get on it earlier and make these teams feel special, in a sense like Notre Dame feels special with their own TV, their own TV deal on NBC. Some of these teams are not getting the amount of look that they need, and at the end of the day, even the looks that they need from scouts.
Yeah, exactly. It's frustrating. It's cool to look at the future, but to just think what could have been with the Pac-12. It's just, I don't know. It's frustrating.
Yeah, but at the same time, it just didn't feel like they had the money, they had the resources, anything like that. And at the end of the day, the Big 12 just seemed like a better deal. I really did not like conference alignment to this huge extent. I don't know about you guys. Have you enjoyed it? I'll ask Rick first. Rick, have you enjoyed it? Well, he's just nodding his head no.
I haven't. And to Tony's point, good Lord, they say timing is everything. You look this year, you've got Alabama losing to Texas. You've got Duke beating Clemson. Man, what a perfect opportunity this could have been. And really what I think it'll do is it'll alert other conferences and stuff about, hey, we need to really pay attention to the current state of affairs.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's one thing that these the commissioners of each kind of conference, they are always looking towards the future, how to build things up stronger and stronger. Sometimes they need to focus on the now and figure that out. And that's one thing I think that is really big on those guys. So you have anything else though with with the Pac-12?
No, I think we're good. I just want to see the winning continue. Let's just make it more and more awkward. Maybe we'll get our first national champion out of the Pac-12 in the playoff era, and then
wouldn't that be
away?
Would that be hilarious though? Wouldn't that be? I mean, that would just be whichever conference got that team. Like if it's Big Ten, whatever, that would be so exciting. It just in terms of, I'd also get a laugh. So that's just me.
Be the cherry on top.
Exactly. And we're kind of getting a little bit more pressed for time, why don't we move over into some of the matchups? And like always, I like to start with
You got a 2 for this week, Rick.
Yes, you get 2. Let's talk about. I'll just let you take the floor. Actually, you do your thing.
Well, so I'm kind of the little brother this week, just for the fact that this is our first interpage matchup preview that John and Tony will have, and I'm excited because I get one coming up the end of October with John, of course, and I definitely when we start talking about, I want to just make sure that Tony touches on what he learned and what he got out of that former rivalry with Nebraska. I think that'll
We'll
be
definitely get into that. Don't you fret.
yes, yeah.
Don't you fret. That is going to be fun.
I'm excited. This game for Air Force, I don't think it gets much bigger this early in the season. And to that point specifically, in the last 3+ full seasons, I say plus because we played 2 games this year, the university, it's the I'd say I call it the Academy University, but here's what's going on. We are 33-8 the last 3+, and that's very impressive. I think you both would agree. However, those 8 losses, a quarter of those losses, which is 2, and I'm not a good math guy, so I actually crunched the numbers on that. 25% of our losses are to this Aggie team. Significant, definitely. And really what I see is this is kind of that next level deal, right? So last year we lost in Logan. Specifically, I think we lost because of one event. So sometime late second quarter, our linebacker Alec Mock had tackled a ball carrier, looks down and his glove, noticed blood, pulls off his glove and has a compound fracture. If you're not familiar with compound fracture, the bone goes through the skin. It's ugly. It'll make you sick if you get a good enough look at it. Well, we were not the same team after that. We ended up losing that game in the fourth quarter, and compounded with the year before where we had lost a barn burner at home. I really think that this game is huge. First game of the conference, huge measuring stick. And then the question mark, right? So in September in Colorado, we all know what the big question mark is, and it's that transition weather, the end of the summer going into the fall, and this is going to be a typical Colorado Springs weather opportunity. Forecasted 60% chance of rain. It's going to start off in the 50s, end up in the 40s, a lot like CU game last year. So a lot of challenges going into this game.
Yeah, first of all, how are you going to be nice and bundled up? I mean, that's my question for you, because you're just going to make it through it. That's how you roll, isn't it?
Yeah, I've got the Air Force parkas, but these I can't do that this year because I mentor a couple dozen guys, and they
look for you.
In Baylor we were 7 below zero, and they weren't wearing sleeves, so I'm just gonna have to tough it out.
All right, you got to be like them, but again, Utah State, it feels like a team that Air Force it just seems to struggle with, like you're saying. What do you think about Utah State that kind of causes trouble for the Air Force Falcons? Is it their defense able to help, stay with the triple option? Is it the offense, when they had Love at certain points? What is kind of that ability for Utah State to be able to be in these games? Because it feels like Air Force should be taking these pretty handedly, but they haven't.
I think one of the things with Utah State is they are so diverse offensively, and our defense, last year, like I said, was number 1 in the nation, but they struggled at times against Cooper Legas and his ability to improvise. A lot of their success last year was on broken plays. So I think that they're well coached. I like Blake Anderson. I think that he just brings a game plan that covers, our speed on the edges and they stack the middle. So to answer your question, I really believe it's been about preparation and they've been the more prepared team the last 2 times.
Now, was Cooper Legas the quarterback when they had that shootout the last time the game was in Colorado Springs? I think it was 49-45 in 2021.
No, so that was the Cedric Bonner era. And then he went down, and Andrew Peasley was actually the quarterback that rallied them. He is the starter at Wyoming, and he'll be playing in Austin this weekend.
Wow.
Real
big question, though, for you. It seems like you said, you have a compound fracture with some of the – let's talk about some of the injuries real quick with Air Force. How have they been able to basically continue their success, even though these guys are going through some tremendous pain and maybe playing through it for some of them?
Yeah, that's a good point. We do have some guys that are banged up. We have a couple guys, that I won't get specific about, but they have injuries where they do have the option to have surgery now and and start the healing process. But these guys are seniors for the most part, and that isn't going to happen. Now, last week we saw the first start for a young man named CJ Boyd replacing Camby Goff. I was able to
how was everything going for him?
Camby's one of my guys, and good attitude. He we'll see it, and I don't think he'll care if I say, but he will be back next year, which is big for this program because next year is going to be a big transition year.
So then he can be leader. Great. He's going to be that leader next year, you think?
Without a doubt.
Oh, that's huge, though. I mean, I understand things didn't go his way this year, but being able to kind of come back. Excuse me, what is that term that they use in Air Force for when they turn around?
Turn back.
Turn back. Thank you. I like that they're able to do that, and I think it just makes him better. So I'm very excited about that. You guys want to move? Are you still good, Rick? Do you have anything else to say about the Air Force USU matchup?
I think it comes down to just doing a couple things that I alluded to when we were doing the opening. Doing some things that have worked, and really offensively, not a lot has worked, and staying steadfast on defense. So offensively, here's what I hope that they're going to do. So through 2 games, John Lee Eldridge, who led the nation in yards per carry average last year, has gotten 11 carries. That is unacceptable.
Makes no sense. No. And also because he's a leader on the team.
Yeah, and he's got limited touches. Conversely, you're seeing some guys emerge. Owen Burke is a guy who has led this team in rushing. Last week, second in rushing the first week. He's an emerging star. He's a former high school quarterback from Michigan. He's put on some muscle, and between him and a younger guy, Dylan Carson, who wears number 20, Brad Roberts' old number, we're getting some production in the middle. So I hope they go with that formula. I hope that Larrier gets better because he has struggled, specifically in the second game, hesitant, really rattled. So we have options if that doesn't go well. But offensively, just get John Lee Eldridge the ball, please. For the love of God, please.
Well, I don't get it either. It seems like he's the leader. He's been doing this for years. He can teach other guys. I understand if you have an emerging star, like you want to get them the ball. They have some special talent, but at the end of the day, that's rough. I did not expect that to hear at this point of the season to be under 15 carries.
Well, I think their mentality was give him limited touches in game one, and he broke a 65-yarder. And then the game plan changed when you found out that Sam Houston State University had a very large D line, and we were having trouble, and they were sideline to sideline very quick. So that changed that game plan. But you cannot modify a 15 to 25 touch game plan this week for John. And on the other side of the ball, Alec Mock, 11 tackles last week. Bo Richter, 2 sacks. Peyton Zadroik, a sack and a half. Trey Taylor, even being limited from time to time, he still ended up with 5 tackles. So let's play our defensive game. Matthew DePore on special teams has not missed this year. I call him Auto Matt Ick because he is.
I like that.
Big leg.
Skeen was not lying when he said he had faith in him when we spoke. So yeah, I agree. That's been amazing.
Yeah, he'll be a rare 4-year starter. He'll have the opportunity to break the all-time points record held by Luke Strable. So just, push forward, but understand this game will determine how well you do in the conference going forward. And I think they know that. Talked to Trey Taylor last night, and he guarantees that they will be ready, and he's looking for his first victory against USU.
All right, Rick. I'm going to put your knowledge to the test. You ready for it?
Yes.
So this is a little bit of fun just to test your knowledge. I think I have confidence in you, but it's also to show off some pretty cool Air Force memorabilia that I have. So I know I had mentioned to you that I was a huge Sean Carney fan when I was growing up. That was my boy when I was watching football. One of the other Air Force guys that I loved growing up in that time era was a tight end, number 86. Can you name that tight end? He played from, I believe, 01 to 03 as Air Force's tight end.
Man, you got me stumped because tight ends have been fairly successful at the academy. We had Garrett Griffin, who was in the NFL for 5 seasons.
Did we stump him? I mean, not me, but did we?
Yeah,
this would be the first time I think on when we've gone to anywhere, you and me, Rick, and on just everything. I think this is the first time we stumped you.
So Tony did. Part of the reason I brought this up is because you mentioned the gloves with the blood on it, and I had his sister as one of my high school teachers, and she got me a pair of Adam Strecker signed Air Force gloves, complete with blood on them.
Complete with blood on them.
Complete with blood on them. So it's a fun thing, Miss Strecker was one of my teachers.
Wait, why don't you have those nicely hung up on the wall now?
So it is. I do have a cool case. Maybe if we do, I could move the webcam and show the fans one day if we do a live show or something like that.
Yeah.
But I do have a memorabilia display case, and I ran to go get these out of there because it reminded me when he was telling
That's
the story.
Why you took that little quick break.
Now, don't get me wrong. Adam was a blocking first tight end, but he was 6'6". He was a monster, and he mauled at the line of scrimmage. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. I talked about it recently. I've been to 149 of the last 151 games, but that didn't start until 2011. So, you stumped me on that one.
I stumped you. That's okay. Yeah,
I do know him though. He's a boss, man.
Well, shout out to Adam. You definitely had a fan in young Tony.
There we go. Also, real quick, just want to do a quick reminder. Hey, head on over to goairforcefalcons.com or shop.goairforcefalcons.com. If you want to get some Air Force gear, It's just a great way of being able to do it. They have some great exclusive kind of merchandise. So I just highly suggest it. And anything else you want to add to that, Rick?
I'd mentioned it the last time we talked about the merch, and that Doolittle Raiders stuff is starting to show up at the games, and it's tight and it's white and it looks good. Definitely got an order going myself, and come get your old school stuff like Tony's talking about, and get your Air Power Legacy stuff either from this year or the years past. We were Space Force last year, which was pretty cool too. And those items are discounted.
Ooh, I like that you're already telling me some discounts. That always gets me excited. So as we kind of get ready to move on here to some other games, who do you want to start with? CSU's perspective, or should we go with CU's? They're the big, at this point, they're the big brothers. I'm sorry, I'm making an executive decision. It's time.
We both got the double dip, Rick. We both.
Yes, you both do.
I mean, when we look at this game, CU is highly favored. I think the line has moved up to 24 points now. When you look at it, you see the motivation factor that we talked about earlier in the game. I had kind of seen it as a blowout to begin with. Even before all the stuff came out today, I had predicted kind of a 52-10 type of game, depending on how much we get out of the new quarterback for CSU.
Yeah.
But with this added motivation and the talent gap that's been shown, especially in the offensive side of the ball, I think this is one that could really get ugly early in Folsom. We may actually see a game where Travis Hunter only plays 60 snaps. So I don't know. What do you think, John? How do you see this going down?
When this game, I honestly feel like Colorado State is just not prepared. They needed a little bit more time to, install their offense. It felt like with Matt Mummy. It just felt like for right now, they're not getting pushed. Again, I understand this was just going off of 1 week, but it felt like everywhere was a disaster. And I'm very concerned that the Buffs are going to come out very, very hot, flying around and using their speed. And I just don't think CSU can keep up with it. It's very difficult to see how they're going to be able to. Again, they have a couple receivers at CSU with Simmons, Ross, and Horton. But at the same time, you have the corners at CU that can keep up with the best of the best. And even though I really do like Horton, and I think he could be a first to second round guy, he's not getting any favors right now with the way the passing game is going. So a lot of concerns for Colorado State for me, honestly. And I do agree. I actually had my point prediction for CU being 56. So, I mean, it really is one of those things where I see it being very high scoring affair because, again, the defense, even though they have those some good secondary, teams can just – this is a great opportunity for the Buffs to start, establishing the run, getting more comfortable with the run because this is a CSU team that just does not have the power or anything like that to get going. So make this team 5-1 in terms of their offensive play for Colorado.
Yeah. And, we kind of go back, Rick had kind of brought it up, things that we kind of saw from that Nebraska game. One of the things that I was really encouraged with was the play of our defensive line, especially out on the outside. You see that combination of 49 and 44, as my brother's been talking about him, but it's Jordan Dominic and Taj Alston. Those are guys that got consistent push, both in the run game and were able to get after the quarterback. Taj Alston, I think, had a sack and a half in the game. And you see that, and you see, the improved play of the Colorado State line and not giving up as many sacks as they did last year against Washington State, but there was still that consistent push and a lot of hands in the face of the quarterback.
Yeah.
Again, I think this is one of those things where if they can get a consistent pass rush, and I think they will, this could make it a long game for their new quarterback as well.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a long game for them just because, like you said, The line still seems to have those similar issues. I understand they're different guys, but again, a lot of them were transfers. I think actually all but one are transfers. And when you have that, it just takes time to gel. I think Rick, you were speaking about this, the jump from week 1 to week 2, essentially how huge it is. And for CSU, they have to make that jump to kind of see where they're going now. Rick, do you want to kind of expand upon your idea of the week 1 to week 2, or did I do a good enough job?
No, I think you touched upon it. One of the things, and Flavor Flav's quote, "Don't believe the hype." Well, believe the hype in Boulder, because it's real. I would like to see CSU get something positive out of this game, no matter what it is, even if it's fourth quarter play like they did against Wazoo. But I'd like to see them get their playmakers, like you said, the ball.
Yeah, and one thing for me at this point is, again, I'm very concerned about how this is going to, interfere with the 2024 class for CSU. They have an amazing class. Darius Curry. They have a Ross coming in. They have 2 4-star recruits coming in. They have a bunch of 3-stars. It really is a different kind of athlete that they're being able to obtain this year. And that's because, CSU has given them the patience of not saying, hey, 1 to 2 years, you're done. But, it is a concern now for me that, hey, these guys that have, committed somewhat, they can just kind of slip their way out and go somewhere else that they feel comfortable with. And so that's a concern for me for CSU moving towards the future. And I do think you have to stay with Jay Norvell for 4 years in order to see this thing out completely, because this wasn't the Deion Sanders kind of idea where you're going to see immediate success. I think that CSU knew when it came to Jay Norvell, this was going to be a 4-year process. Let him see his full recruitment line, and then you can make a decision. So a lot of concerns for me when it comes to Colorado State. I don't know how they're going to do it, being able to move the ball. It really is just very interesting to me that they so immediately went to Braden Fowler Nicolosi. And again, I understand he moved the ball. He got some points scored with deep passes, some medium passes. So I understand why they made the change. It just felt like a surprise.
Yeah. And I think, when you look at this game, it's basically going to come down to that Colorado State front against the Colorado Buffaloes defense.
Yeah.
This is a rush defense that has given up 200 yards rushing to each of their first 2 teams. And I know you had addressed it, John, the first time we had talked. Colorado State was not able to run the ball effectively against Washington State. I think they were averaging less than 2 yards a carry.
It was bad. I mean, their best ball carrier was under 3, and then they had guys in the negatives. So you're right. It was probably 2 point whatever. It was low.
Yeah. So you really see that. Could this be one of those things like a 2009, the last time Colorado and Colorado State faced off in Folsom, where CSU was able to eke out the win, 6-point win? I really don't think so, but their one hope is to try and establish some kind of running game, and again, just kind of keep bleeding out that clock and keep that Colorado offense off the field. Because if Colorado gets something like 10 to 12 possessions, they're going to score a lot of points. So really that's your chance. You really have to establish a running game, try and get something moving, and just bleed that clock down.
I agree with you. The one thing that, again, we're just Colorado guys, so excuse me, but when it comes to the Broncos last week, when you saw them, hey, look, they only had 6 possessions. You saw what that did to the team. On 4 of those 6 possessions, they had opportunities to score, were in great position. So you kind of want to do that mindset for CSU to CU. Hey, let's keep them off the field. Let's control the time of possession. Now it's time to really make those 4-yard gains and where you feel comfortable with those every single time. Those are things you'll take every single down, 4 yards, and you'll run that defense down. And again, we were talking a little bit about the offensive front for CU. CSU has definitely improved their front. They can get after the quarterback. It's just a matter of, will Sanders get the ball out fast enough? And I think that's something that he can do, unfortunately, at least for CSU.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at that Nebraska game, and Shedeur Sanders is sacked 8 times, so there's definitely lies some opportunity. And you see, when you're just kind of talking about offensive fronts, mostly built on the transfer portal, they're taking that time to gel. I think where you see the major difference is the level of quarterback play. You know what you're going to get from Shedeur Sanders. I'm not sure we know what we're going to get from BFN right now.
Yeah, and I think we're going to actually just switch it to BFN. I like the way that we're rolling with it. I think it's cool. Every single other time I have to look. Okay, Nicolosi. Let's ride with that. So
I like it. It's kind of that callback to the PFM era. If he can become that kind of player, we could have a PFN and a BFN.
Yeah. So anything else you guys have on your mind? So I know we're pushing up on an hour when it comes to this week. I know we didn't get to talk about some of the other teams, but at the end of the day, this is Colorado Collegiate focus. So let's focus on Colorado. So anything else, though, on your guys' mind in general with college football?
What do we got for a score, Rick? What's Air Force going to do?
Well, I called for a 8-point victory last week at Sam Houston State. We got indeed a 10-point victory. So I've been in the ballpark on both games for Air Force. So I'm feeling like, with the weather and our style of offense, I'm thinking 31-17, the good guys. And in you guys' game, which is really pretty important to me as well.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go old school, 62-26.
Oh, so a lot of people have been asking me, do they break 60? And so I find that very interesting. You put the over 60. That's why I went with 56. I just didn't want to go over the 60. But I'm very glad that you had the cojones to do it, because I want to. I just don't know if I can. Exactly. So for me, it's a 56 to I honestly think they're not going to even take field goals when they have the opportunity. They're going to try to score every single time for that. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be 56 to, if lucky, 14. I really feel that way. What about you, Tony?
I'll stick with my prediction. Like I said, I put this down on paper before all the Jay Norvell and Deion Sanders stuff came out. I stuck with 52-10. I'll go ahead and stay there for right now, but I could see it get uglier and potentially a 60 burger.
This is where you hope that CU's like, hey, we're going to put in some backups. That's where you hope.
And for Air Force, Utah State, I'm feeling like a 28-20 kind of game. Ooh, I think there might be a little bit more scoring for Utah, but I think Air Force will prevail. I do like Air Force in that game.
And for Air Force, I'll go real quick. I think they can win this one. Actually, this is going to be a surprising one, 24-10. I think they can hold it defensively. They're very strong. They have the leaders. I believe in Air Force's defense. And as we're getting ready to get out of here, just want to make some quick any TV information you guys want to get out, if you want to attend in person or anything like that. You've already talked a lot about what's going on with the different kind of things going on at CU. But Rick, what's going on at Air Force?
Well, you know what I'd like to do, and I expect this thing to be out here tomorrow, which is game day for us, Friday. Yeah. The 15th of September. I really, unless you'd like to stay comfortable and eat a bowl of chili and watch us, we're at 6 p.m. on CBS Sports Network. But if you're really truly a college football fan, bundle up and come down and watch this. I will be at the Bolt Brotherhood tailgate. I am one.
Is that all year?
It is. I'm one of the exceptions. I'm the first non-alumni player to be welcome into that group, which is a huge a huge thing for me personally. So we're on the east side of the stadium. Come by and say hi, and come down there. It's September at Falcon Stadium. Is cold and wet typically, but it's fun as heck.
Yeah,
I will back that one up. Last year was the first year that I was in Falcon Stadium for that CU Air Force game, and I was awestruck. I was a fan. I loved it, so I can't wait to come back down. And who knows? Maybe when I go down for a game, maybe Adam Strecker will be there.
Hey, and off the air, we'll talk about anything you guys want from this current class signed. I can't guarantee blood, but we'll do what we can. What are our options? Tony talked about tailgating and Gronk Fest 2023 and stuff. What are my options to watch this game?
Yeah, so they will be kicking off. CSU will be kicking off on ESPN at 8 p.m. So it will be the night game. It will be the late kickoff, but it is nationally televised. So Colorado
this is
will
one
be
where
up
people
front.
will stay up. This is the difference when we were talking earlier versus the Pac-12, where it didn't feel like there were stakes. Now there's stakes.
Yep. You got the prime factor going into this game. Again, pardon the pun. It's just too easy to do.
Yes. It feels like we have run out of time here. Thank you so much for joining us. My name is Jonathan Cronenberg. You can follow me at John K NFL. Got Tony Cosolo next to me at Lots of Boba Fett, Buffalo's Wire. You can really follow him there. And then you got Rick Baum, the number one guy for the Falcons, and I'm talking about it. He is the insider, in my opinion, at Falcon8Fan. So just give us a follow. Also at CCF_sports for our main page, sending a lot of different stuff from the 3 different schools. So please subscribe. And otherwise, I hope you all have a great games. Enjoy it. Your teams win. And let's get out of here and have some good football coming up.
Let's go, Buffs!
Let's go, Buffs. All right, guys. Be well.
Go and try your luck. Test me in again, we let it rain. Please don't start us up. Got that black and white, that yin and yang. Mr. Officer, please don't search us, we don't got a thing. Tell her park it up, then that be poking out them jeans. Up and sparking up, like the fireworks, I keep the flame. Heard you parking up, it's the wrong tree, I got the strings. Yeah, I'm charging up, they can't keep up, got them looking drained. Now they walking up, trying to put the face to the name. Pull up and I'm swerving. If a try to holler.